Chapter 56, The Viper and the Mountain. Casterly Rock, 294 AC. Jon watched Oberyn as he held the letter, tears streaming down his cheeks. A sense of intrusion washed over Jon. He felt as if he were invading the man's privacy, as if he didn't belong there. Rhaenys rested quietly against Oberyn's chest, gripping his silken coat tightly. The two shared a moment of silence, almost as if they were united in their grief and loss. Jon turned away to give them space. He was surprised when he didn't have to wait long. He heard Rhaenys chirp and glanced over his shoulder to see Oberyn extending the letter toward him. "Did you read this?" Oberyn asked, his eyes red from wiping his face. "It was not mine to read, my prince," Jon replied. "She speaks of you in it," Oberyn said, a soft smile breaking through his sorrow. "She calls you her son. My sister was too good for this world, Jaehaerys, far too good. She implores me to be like her. Read." He handed the letter to Jon. Jon took it from the prince, his hand shaking. Rhaenys flew to land on his shoulder, and he moved to the bed, sitting down and allowing his dragon to climb down his body and rest in his lap. He glanced at Oberyn, who nodded, and then Jon began to read the letter. "My dearest brothers. If you are reading this letter, then the worst has happened, and our uncle has been unable to get me and the children to safety. All of our plans have failed terribly. I know you will blame Rhaegar, blame Lyanna, and perhaps even blame their son, my son. Do not, for if you do, you shame me, brothers. And when we meet again, I will not forgive you for it. Rhaegar and I were never a love match. We tried, we did our duty. We brought two wonderful children into the world, and the love we may not have had for each other, we poured into them. Each day I spent in the hell that was King's Landing was a day too much. It bore down on me, wore me down, and I do believe had I been forced to live there. I had thought that this world would either break me or kill me in time. So, I suggested to Rhaegar that we part ways. Reluctantly, he agreed. I could live my life freely with my love in Dorne, and he could find someone else to share his life and heart with. But this world is a cruel and strange place. While Rhaegar found his love, mine was taken from me. Lyanna was what he needed, what the realm needed. Together, they would accomplish what I could not, and the promised prince would come. Yet, it seems we did not fully account for the ambitions of greedy men or the strength of those who wished to see the dragons fall. What should have been a turning point instead became our greatest failure. But if you are both reading this letter, then brothers, all is not lost. Lyanna lives, and her babe, Jaehaerys, has been born. My hopes and dreams rest with him. Help him, brothers. Guide him. Be for him what I would have been, be his family, for he will need one in the days to come. To Doran, my sweet older brother, I can only say that I did my duty, but I did so at the cost of my own heart. As I write this, I can only think that duty is too high a price to pay when compared to love. What is duty against the feel of a newborn in your arms or the memory of a brother's smile? Wind and words, brother. Wind and words. We are only human, and the gods have fashioned us for love. That is our great glory and our great tragedy. Oberyn, my dear, impulsive, rash brother, I asked you only to protect the boy. Protect him as if he were Aegon, as if he were Rhaenys. His brother and sister would have loved him as much as I love mine. He is blood of my blood, brother. He is their brother just as you were mine. Remember that when you look upon my son. To Jaehaerys, do not blame yourself. Do not, because I do not. Remember this, you are a dragon, my son. Be a dragon and show them all that, just like me, you are of Dorne. I am and always shall be unbowed, unbent, and unbroken. Oberyn Martell, mother of 3 and princess of Dorne. Jon placed the letter on the bed and began to cry loudly. He sobbed while Rhaenys chirped softly, her gentle sounds offering comfort, though they struggled to penetrate the sadness he felt. He cursed Tywin Lannister, Amory Lorch, Gregor Clegane, he cursed them all. He felt Oberyn sit down on the bed beside him, felt his arm wrap around his shoulder, careful not to press too hard, though he doubted he would have felt it anyway. I killed him, Jon said softly. Lorch, I killed him myself for what he did. I heard he had died. How? Oberyn asked. I stabbed him, once for every one he. Jon's voice shook. Then she is avenged. It's not enough. I want to bring him back to life. I want to kill him again and again. It's not enough, Jon lamented, and Oberyn held him tighter. It's all we have, nephew. It's all we have. They sat in silence, Rhaenys nestled between them, while Ghost lay on the floor, watching them quietly as always. Jon felt grateful for the stillness in the room, though he felt anything but peaceful. The Mountain, you're still going after him? Jon asked, breaking the silence. We both seek justice for our sister, nephew. You have had yours, it's time I taste my own. I had a vision. I saw it, the fight. Something happened, you fell, slipped, I don't know, but he beat you. I saw him kill you and then your children. A warning or a certainty? Oberyn asked. A warning, I think. Then I shall be most careful, Oberyn replied with a smile. I want you to take Ghost with you. Why? I wish to see him fall, to see. I can do it myself. And if things go wrong, I can help. Will you let me? I never turn down help from family, Oberyn replied with a smile. There is much we must discuss, Jaehaerys, and many decisions to make. But you have my spear, should you wish it. I do, my prince. Uncle. It is my sister's wish, and we both know that sisters should have their way. Oberyn smirked as Rhaenys chirped in agreement. They began to reminisce about Elia, sharing stories that Oberyn had kept close, known only to Illyria and his daughters. Jon could feel the weight of Oberyn's loss, a pain that resonated deeply within him as he grappled with his own grief. Eventually, Oberyn felt it was time to leave. He turned to say his farewells, pulling Jon into a warm hug before promising they would talk more upon his return. I would ask you to look after Illyria, Sarella, and my other girls should the worst happen. I will speak to her about you, if you'll allow it. Oberyn said earnestly. I would be honored. But nothing will happen when you face him. It's not your day to die, Jon reassured him. Oberyn nodded. No, not mine. He smiled and departed. Moments later, Jon felt drained. He hadn't been alone for long when Jaime walked in. Despite the emotions he had just experienced, Jon ran to him. Are you well? Jaime asked, wrapping his arms around Jon. I am. I think it will work out. Oberyn? He is with us. Elia, she named me her son, Jon replied, and Jaime nodded in understanding. Jaime stayed with him until Jon yawned, which made them both chuckle softly. Go get some rest. I'll speak to the others and let them know how it went, Jaime said. Jon nodded tiredly as he climbed into bed, with Rhaenys and Ghost curling up beside him. As for Tyrion, from the moment Jon had given him the book, he had been completely absorbed in it, navigating through the daily grind of a world that felt both familiar and foreign. The Maester was busy reporting on mundane tasks, like ordering supplies and even discussing Ricard's constipation. But then he stumbled upon a passage where the man essentially called the Warden of the North an idiot and referred to his daughter as a wilding whore who didn't know her place. It seemed he might need to keep his distance from Jon. Yet, it was the subtle nuances within the text, the little notes and the language woven among the words, that captivated Tyrion. He read, I've begun to lay the groundwork with the Lord, showing him the benefits. Despite all their talk of honor, these lords are the same, it's coin and influence that truly drive them. Tyrion continued reading. Fostering must be tackled first. If I can get him to agree to that, then we can move on to the next step. Casterly Rock is out of the question, as is the Red Keep. Riverrun might work, but there's little respect for the river lords here. High Garden is also off the table, despite how easily trade could serve as an incentive. It's the Vale we must turn to. He noted, Baratheon's fostering presents both a problem and an opportunity. If we can secure the Lord of the Vale's agreement, a friendship could blossom between the two boys, and perhaps then we could advance to the next stage. Tyrion sifted through more trivial thoughts from the Maester, who apparently had a fondness for winter roses, as they reminded him of Old Town. These flowers were one of the few things in the north that piqued his interest. He didn't find anything else on fostering, but he knew Ned Stark had fostered in the Vale under Jon Arryn. Eventually, he discovered something else worth reading, but by then, he was too tired to continue. After placing the journal on his table, he lay down and fell asleep, drifting off into dreams of soaring above the clouds, gazing down at the land beneath him with a smile on his face. When he awoke the next morning, he cursed Jon and Rhaenys for inspiring such dreams. Yet, he couldn't help but smile at the thought of asking Jon if he would take him along when he flew. He sat down for his meal, lost in thought. Brought him rooms, broke his fast, and began to read once again. 275 AC. The heir is a brute, quick to anger and slow-witted. The boy cares for nothing but rutting like a savage, riding horses, and fighting. He is and never shall be a friend of ours. The girl, too, is no better than a savage. The younger son is quite malleable, though he's best kept away from his sister. But it seems there is some hope in Eddard. His friendship with Baratheon is as strong as we had hoped, and he clings to honor as if it were a shield. 276 AC. After much hard work, there seems to be light, my friends. A betrothal has been made, and though we are far from done, it seems we get closer each day. 278 AC. The woman has fallen ill. Though I've done what I could, at least made it appear that way, this is a boon we cannot afford to miss. She is not long for this world, and with her opposition to our plans, she will fade from Winterfell for good. The Lord may listen to his lady, but with her gone, he'll be more susceptible. The dragons are as weak as they've ever been. 279 AC. I have received news, and it's better than we could have hoped for, a weak woman married to the dragons. The time to act is upon us, and with the lady passed, I believe he will consider the match. I've laid the groundwork, but the rest is up to my brothers. I cannot do it all myself. Tyrion sat, incredulously staring at the book in front of him. Everything the Starks had done for almost 10 years had been meticulously planned, strategized, and executed, not by the will of the Lord or the gods, but by men in gray robes. He felt his hunger rise and the stiffness in his legs, so after placing the journal in a drawer, he took a walk, surprised at how late it had become. He walked to the kitchen to find something to fill his empty stomach. Grabbing some cheese and cold meat, he sat down at the table and began to eat. "What has you up at this hour, nephew?" he heard. Tyrion heard his uncle's voice as he swallowed some wine. "I was reading," he replied. "The journal Jon gave you, I'd hazard a guess?" It's fascinating. They planned it, Jerian. What Jon suggested, they set the seeds for it. The rebellion? Jerian asked, shocked. Not that. I mean, yes, but I'm not sure exactly. Nothing in it says that in so many words. It talks about the dragons being weak, but mainly it seems the Maester was steering House Stark in the direction they wanted. How? And who are they? They, I think, are more Maesters, perhaps the Citadel itself. As to how, firstly by fostering Ned Stark in the Vale, then through the betrothal of Brandon Stark to Catelyn Tully. Tyrion noticed his uncle scowl at the mention of the Tullys. Why? I mean, a betrothal, a fostering, what benefits would that bring them against the Targaryens? On its own, nothing. But push enough in the right direction. Did you not think it was strange that in just a couple of moves, 3 kingdoms were joined by blood, and a 4th by obligation to its lord's foster sons? Not at the time. Lyanna Stark and Robert Baratheon. Catelyn Tully and Brandon Stark, with Jon Arryn right in the middle of it. Tyrion raised a finger after each name. The North, the Riverlands, the Stormlands, and the Vale, 4 against 3, and suddenly the odds are shifted. By the gods, it could have been 5, Jerian said loudly. What do you mean? Lisa Tully. There was a proposal to betroth Lisa and Jaime. It never got anywhere, but I know Hoster tried it. Jerian's face showed disgust as he spoke of the Tullys. Uncle, what happened between you and the Tullys? Another time, Tyrion. Let me think. Jerian replied, and Tyrion nodded. Hoster and Jon Arryn, they knew the game too well. They'd be hard men to manipulate. Robert was just a boy, and Rickard Stark wasn't accustomed to how things were done here. The Maester, what was his name again? Flowers. Whaley's Flowers. A bastard from the Reach. We need to find out more, Tyrion. If the Maesters are involved, then none of us are safe. It wouldn't be all of them, but yes, we need to be cautious. We should limit our letters to the essentials and only send general messages through the Maesters. Anything else, we deliver by hand. I'll talk to Jaime. Leave him be tonight. He and Jon had a rough time. What happened? Have you really been locked away in your room that long? Jerian laughed. I must have been, Tyrion replied, shaking his head as he joined in the laughter. Oberyn knows. He and Jon spoke after the tourney. The tourney? But that's not until, God, I missed the damn tourney. Tyrion exclaimed, prompting Jerian to burst into laughter. You did. Oberyn? He's with us, Jerian said, a proud smile spreading across his face. He is? I told you he and Jon spoke. Must have been some conversation. It was. Jaime said it took a lot out of Jon. Anyway, he stayed with him for a bit to make sure he was all right. So, give it tonight and talk to him when you're both better rested. Now I need to get some rest myself. We'll be heading out for Castamere in the morning. Are things set? They are. Word will have reached him that Adam competed too. Good. You won't be involving yourself, will you? Tyrion asked, a note of concern in his voice. Only to a point. Good night, nephew. Good night, uncle. Tyrion picked up the plate and walked back to his room. His appetite had deserted him, but he knew he'd wake hungry later. Jerian rode to Lannisport after saying goodbye to Joy that morning. He was grateful that both Sansa and Margaery, along with Loras and Brienne, were there when they broke their fast, as Jon had decided. Tyrion lay awake, contemplating the letter destined for Oberyn and Doran. According to Jaime, it contained a message meant for Jon as well, one that had brought him both comfort and distress. For once, Joy wasn't anxiously glancing over her shoulder to see if Jon would enter the room. It was Margaery who seemed most agitated, though Tyrion could sense her underlying worry. As the time came to say goodbye to his daughter, he felt a surge of happiness seeing Sansa holding her hand while Margaery made silly faces to coax a laugh from her. Just witnessing their bond reassured him that she truly belonged at the Rock for the time being. Upon arriving at the house where Oberyn was staying, Tyrion noticed that his daughters were already saddled up and ready to go. Oberyn was engaged in conversation with the youngest, who would be staying behind, before he turned to kiss his paramour goodbye. Lord Jerian, I didn't expect you to be the one escorting us, Oberyn remarked as he mounted his horse. I'm the only one of my men the wolf will follow, Jerian replied, gesturing toward the white wolf waiting at the gate. Dire wolves. All my life, I hoped to see one, and I never thought it would be here in the West, Oberyn said, a smile spreading across his face. And now there are 3 of them here, Jerian added, sharing in the moment. As they rode through the gates, Oberyn glanced back to smile at his paramour. Geryon closed his eyes for a moment, envisioning her blonde hair and radiant smile, then shook his head to dispel the thoughts. When they reached the gates of Lannisport, they joined the rest of their company. 40 of his best men would be participating in what lay ahead, alongside Ser Adam's 200 and another 50 from the Rock. "Is this all the men?" Oberyn asked, surveying the group. "No, there are more on the way to meet us." "This is just the escort, we've quite a journey ahead," Geryon replied. "How long?" Oberyn inquired. "A week at most, my prince," Geryon answered, and Oberyn nodded in acknowledgement. Listening to the playful banter of Oberyn's daughters stirred thoughts of his own children even more. He saw her as regularly as he could. Tyrion rode to the Rock, staying as long as he could, but he questioned himself every single time. His mind told him it was for the best. She had Jon and Loras, Kevin's and Jenna's boys, and for now, she also had Sansa and Marjorie for a couple of moons at least. He could see she was happy, and yet he still worried he was failing as a father in some way. Ever since Jon had arrived, things had changed. He watched her come out of her shell, saw her mother in her through the way she loved to play and her mischievous smiles. She could wrap Jon around her finger with barely any effort. Every day, she looked more and more like Bryony, and he cursed himself, Jon, and the Tullis, each for different reasons and varying degrees of blame. He cursed Jon for showing him how he had failed her mother. Instead of raising their daughter and loving her, he had almost ignored her, leaving her to be raised by servants. Yes, he had spent time with her before Jon arrived, but seeing Jon play with her, reading to her, filled him with a mix of gratitude and frustration. He felt immense love for Jon for showing her the affection of a brother, yet he was painfully aware of how close he had come to losing his own way as a father. He cursed himself for allowing Tywin to have his way, for bowing to his brother's will and the cost it had exacted from him and his daughter. He should have been stronger, should have fought harder, but his brother was right. He had been a foolish man who enjoyed song and wine, reveling in being a Lannister far more than embracing fatherhood. But what was true then was no longer the case. Now, all he wanted was for his daughter to grow, to be loved, and to have the life she truly deserved. "You seem lost in thought, my friend," Oberyn said beside him. "What?" "Ah, sorry," Tyrion replied, laughing. "A woman, my lord?" "Excuse me," he said, confused. "I was saying she must have been some woman," Oberyn continued, a teasing glint in his eye. "Lord, if you're still thinking of her," he said softly. "Ha, she was and she will be," he replied. They rode on and set up camp that night next to a stream. As the tents went up, he sat with Oberyn and his daughters, enjoying their playful banter. He could see the pride in the prince's eyes each time one of the girls spoke. He ate, drank, and laughed, though his heart wasn't in it, his thoughts were still on Joy and Bryony. After a while, he excused himself and headed to his tent. But no matter how hard he tried, sleep eluded him. Eventually, he got back up and went outside to sit by the fire, sipping cool water and staring into the flames. He couldn't shake the feeling that he should have done more. He should have told her to stay. But in the end, he hadn't, and when he learned what had happened, it sent him into a tailspin. If Tywin hadn't died in the rebellion, he might have killed him himself. So what if it would have made him a kinslayer? Some kin deserved to be slain. But his brother was gone, and his thoughts shifted to the Tullis. It was their land, they were the lords of it. They were supposed to keep the people safe, to keep her safe. Finding out that Jon had been attacked on those very same lands brought everything rushing back, stirring up memories he had buried deep inside. The mere mention of the Tullis seemed to trigger those memories. Since Jon's return, it had only gotten worse. Now, when he did manage to find sleep, it was filled with images of her face, her smile, and that pain cut even deeper. Why had he let her go? Why hadn't he gone with her? Why hadn't they protected her? Jenna knew she needed to talk to Jon. There were things the boy had to learn, starting with the faith, though that could wait. There were simpler matters, too, like etiquette and the relationships between the houses. But for now, she allowed him his free time, letting him spend it with Joy and his sister, with Brienne, Loras, and Marjorie. She smiled when she saw the two of them together. Jenna had been a bit more distant and certainly more reserved since the night of the tourney. But for now, she had bigger concerns. She arranged her transport, determined to head to Lannisport. Kevin needed to be brought on board, he had stewed for long enough. Walder and Tywin would accompany her, and she wiped the boys' faces herself once they had finished their breakfast. Thankfully, they managed to keep their clothes clean for once. After that, she walked them to the lift and took it down to the waiting carriage. The journey turned out to be quite pleasant, with the weather just warm enough. Upon arriving at Kevin's residence, her boys dashed off the moment they spotted Martin and Willem. She knew it would be the last time she'd see their clean clothes. Jenna was escorted to Kevin's solar, where she found him quietly reading over some missives. In the shadows, he bore an uncanny resemblance to Tywin, which caught her off guard for a moment. "Kevin," she said as she walked in and took a seat. "Jenna, I wasn't expecting you. Were we supposed to meet?" he asked. "No, but we need to speak." "On what?" he inquired. "You know what it is." "We need to know your position, Kevin," she replied, and he sighed. "I don't understand any of this, Jenna. This boy, Jon, I know what he's done for us, for our family, and he seems like a nice enough lad. But King? Why should we support him? Why not our own blood? They have no claim, Kevin. If it gets out, we'll be facing enemies from all sides. Jon, however, has the strongest claim of all. He also has the backing of more than just us." "Who?" "The North, the Reach. He may even manage to bring Dorne into the fold, given what Jerian said about Oberyn," she said with a smile. "Oberyn? Why would the Viper support him?" "I don't know the exact reasons, something about a letter, but he's with him, Kevin, as are we." "So, where do you stand?" "Jenna, Will you stand with your family, Kevin?" she asked, looking directly at him. "He's not my family," he said, shaking his head. Jenna leaned forward, her voice filled with urgency. "He is mine, he is Jaime's, Tyrion's, and Jerian's. He may not have our blood or our name, but Jon has made himself part of this family from the very first moment he came here." "Did you know about Joy?" Kevin replied, "I know he was friendly with her. It's more than that. He's her brother, Kevin, by choice if not by blood. Have you seen him with Martin or Willem, with Walder or Tywin? I know the boys like him, Jenna. He's older and spends time with them when he can. I get that. But there's more to being a king than that," he said, shaking his head. There is. There's trade in making sure people are looked after, making the lives of those you serve better. Has he not done that? Is your own life not better because of him? He had nothing to do with it. That was Jaime's choice," he said angrily. "It's no more than I deserve. It was and it is. I won't argue with you on that, you do deserve it. Tywin was a fool not to see it. But have you ever asked how it was possible, how Jaime was able to do it? It was Jon who reopened the mines, Kevin, who gained us more gold. Jon designed the ships you command as admiral. Yes, it was Jaime who gave you the role you deserved, but it was Jon who provided him the means to do so. The children?" he asked resignedly. "Will be looked after. Do you think Jon would harm them?" "No, I may not know him as well as you do, but I know that. He also has a dragon, Kevin," she said, watching his expression shift to shock. "That's impossible." I know, and yet I've seen her. He has a dragon. That alone would be enough," she said, noticing her brother's smile. It would. All right, I'm in. Jenna nodded, relief washing over her. Good, I'd have hated to see you burn. She laughed with him when he realized it was a joke, then shared a glass of wine with him as they spoke about Dorne, who was off. Lancel visited Jenna's father and then brought up the wedding. What did you think of it? She asked. It was a grand affair. You did an amazing job, sister. I did, but did you notice who was missing? I noticed. If Tywin were here, he'd have fumed, he said with a soft chuckle. Well, I suppose we'll have to fume for him, brother. I thought Robert and Cersei would come, he replied. Something happened with them, according to Tyrion's man. Cersei was ill or something. I'm more concerned with the Vale. Jon Arryn? He asked, and she nodded. We cut off our support, but I don't know if that will be enough. Perhaps. He always was a prickly one, Kevin said, and Jenna laughed loudly. We need to pay them back, those who didn't come. We need to show them our displeasure. He nodded. How? Hit them where it hurts, in their coin purses. It's time we raised prices on the ASOIAF supplies. Will Jaime go for it? He will when he sees who we're raising prices on, she said, her thoughts turning to Jon. It had taken him a few days after his talk with Oberyn to feel somewhat normal, just to look at himself without cringing. Rhaenys had helped him a bit, and while he wasn't pretending to be ill, he spent far more time in his room than he should have. He felt guilty for it, but he knew he wasn't much fun to be around either. Still, he tried to put on a happier face. Spending time with Marjorie or Sansa was more difficult, but with Joy, it was easier. Arthur and Jaime had spoken to him, and Loras had been especially eager to change his mood. However, not being able to spar left him feeling stuck at times. Tyrion had come by to talk to him but had clearly changed his mind. Jon actually smiled at him for that, he just wasn't ready to deal with any new revelations. Marjorie had been the closest to getting him out of the shadows, but he wasn't quite there yet. The mood was heavy, but having her spend time with him alone had become a comforting routine he knew he would eventually miss. When he was by himself, he often found solace in drawing. His memories of Elia were vivid, and he was just as captivated by her images as he had been with his mother's when he first drew her. This woman had welcomed him into her family, had called him her son, even though they were not related by blood. That monster had taken her away from him. At night, he warged into Ghost, watching as they drew closer to Castamere, eagerly waiting for the moment he could see the monster fall. Brother, it does no good to sit around like this, Rhaenys said, pulling him from his thoughts. I know. It's just, it could have been so different. It could have, but it's not, Jay. That life, the life we could have had, is just a dream, brother. This is what we have, this is all we have. It's not, is it enough? It's what we have, brother. We have each other, my mother, yours, father, and Egg. We carry them with us. Right now, we're all that remains of that life, and we must live for them, love for them, and be dragons for them, Rhaenys replied. I can't lose anyone else, Ray. I don't think I can bear it. I wish I could promise you that you won't, brother. I wish it could be so. Oberyn? He's safe and well for now, brother, Rhaenys said. I'm happy you're with me, sister, he said, reaching out to stroke the dragon's neck, which turned her chirps into a soft purring sound. We are bonded, brother. Where you go, I go. Now and forever, he replied, and she chirped in agreement. Deciding to take a walk to clear his mind further, he left the room and found Walder on guard. He greeted him, and together they walked to the lift. It was still early, far too soon to break his fast, so they took the lift to the top. The double tower was the highest point of Casterly Rock, and to access it, they needed to climb a set of stairs once they arrived. Jon stepped out of the lift, feeling an inexplicable urge to move forward. Walder followed closely behind him, and the guards they encountered allowed them to pass without hesitation. When they reached a point where they could go no further, Jon turned and looked down. The vast expanse of the west stretched out for miles below him. He couldn't gauge how high up they were, nor could he quite understand why he had come here. Yet, he stood in silence, gazing out as if he were waiting for something, some kind of sign. "You did well in the tourney, Walder," he said, turning to his guard. "I lost," Walder replied. There's no shame in losing as long as you learn from it." "Have you?" Jon asked, recalling a lesson Jaime had taught him long ago. "I have. I should have taken the girl out first," Walder admitted, and Jon nodded in agreement. Are you ready for the ceremony? The knighting? Do we have to do it that way?" Walder asked, a hint of reluctance in his voice. "All but the gods, Walder. But Arthur insisted it must be done like this if you wish to become Kingsguard." "I am a Kingsguard," Walder smirked, eliciting a laugh from Jon. You know what he meant. I do. Have you thought of a name?" Jon asked. "I have. Ser Walder of House Allers," Walder declared, and Jon nodded approvingly. "A fine name, my friend." "He would be proud that you thought of him, as am I," Jon replied, a sense of weight settling in his mind. "Jon? Are you well?" Walder asked, noticing Jon's expression darken. "Walder, I need to warg. Something's happening." "I must sit," Jon said, feeling a pounding in his head before he fell to the ground. Suddenly, he found himself within Ghost, but it was his wolf who had called him, not the other way around. In that moment, he realized what had caused Ghost's panic. The fight was almost over, but he was too far away to help. He tried to run, but it was futile, neither he nor Ghost would make it in time. Then, there was pain, blinding, agonizing pain, a screaming voice, and then nothing but white light as the pain faded away. Geryon. They had reached Castamere, and Jon felt a sense of relief wash over him at the sight of the place. As he passed through the gates, he noticed the surprise on Oberyn's face at how impressive the castle had become. They would eat and sleep here tonight, and tomorrow, he would show Oberyn where the real action would take place. He nodded to Davin, who had ridden out to meet him and now regarded the Dornish with suspicion. "I want baths prepared for Oberyn and his daughters," he ordered, gesturing for his servants to escort them to their rooms. Then he turned to speak to his castellan. "So, that's the Red Viper?" "Aye, it is. Is everything prepared?" "The men from the Rock arrived 2 days ago. I've also received word from our scouts in the hills that the mountain's men have set up camp overlooking the route." "Any close to here?" "No. Whoever is feeding them information about our movements isn't just watching us," Davin said, his annoyance clear at the thought of a spy in their midst. "I know where they got their information from. It's not a problem," Tyrion replied, having dealt with that spy months ago. "Why are the Dornish coming along?" "The Viper wants the mountain, and we might need someone that's skilled to take him down." "You think he's good enough?" "I think he is," Geryon said with a smirk. Davin nodded, satisfied with this, and Geryon made his way to his own room. He almost collapsed onto the bed, his exhaustion finally catching up with him. A few hours later, he awoke still fully dressed, shaking. He had dreamt of her again, dreamt of her calling for him, screaming his name. Jumping from the bed, he stumbled to the privy and threw up. The memories flooded back, her face, the blood, everything was too much to bear. The men around her had always been faceless, but this time, the one standing there, laughing, had been Edmure Tully. In other dreams, it had been Hoster, but lately, it was Edmure he saw. Either way, they were both responsible. It was their land, their small folk they had failed to protect, their village that had been invaded. They may have caught those men later, they may have faced the king's justice, but none of that brought Bryony back. He hadn't given his girl the mother she had lost. They hadn't even managed to provide her with a proper burial. Instead, they had hushed things up, buying off the villagers with coins or threats. But they had known and done nothing. Geryon discovered later that those men were terrorizing the small folk, while Hoster left it to his fool of a son to sort it all out. Instead of confronting the problem, the boy had drunk and whored his way across the riverlands. In the end, it was others who had to take action, almost shaming him into doing his damn job, and Geryon hated him for that. He hated them all. "My lord, a raven," his maester said as he left the room, handing him the scroll. The mountain had arrived. Adam. Geryon walked to the hall, where some of his men had already gathered to eat. Davin sat at the high table with Prince Oberyn and his daughters. Geryon was pleased to see Davin had known to take that seat without needing instruction. Though, considering Geryon's own feelings on bastards, perhaps it was unnecessary. He took a seat beside the prince. "You look terrible, my friend," Oberyn remarked. Geryon managed a weak smile in response. "Just tired. You should read this." He handed Oberyn the note. "The enormity that rides is here," Oberyn said with a smile. "It is. All is set. Tomorrow, I'll show you where you need to be." "Good." Geryon turned to see his men jump to their feet as Ghost walked in. He smirked at the wolf as it strolled past them to the high table. Ghost settled at Geryon's feet, and he wondered if this was how Jon felt as he looked out at the shocked expressions around him. Oberyn glanced from the wolf to Geryon and shook his head. Davin, who knew the wolf from his own visits to the rock, simply ignored it. He called for food to be brought, including a leg of deer for Ghost, who licked his hand. "The wolf likes you?" Oberyn asked. "Aye, Ghost and I get along well, thank the gods." "Gods," Geryon said, rubbing the wolf's head. "You're fond of the boy?" "More than fond, my prince," Geryon replied, and Oberyn smiled at him. "Good." Geryon found he had no real appetite. He ate a little and drank far too much. Still, the prince and his daughters were good company, and even Davin warmed up to them by the end of the night. By the time he went to bed, he was drunk, which allowed him a dreamless sleep. However, he woke up in no mood for riding. After breaking their fast, he prepared to set out. He planned to show them where the ambush would take place, and then, despite his own feelings, return home. A large part of him wished to join in, to help take down the mountain and his men, to exorcise some of the demons from his mind. But he couldn't take the risk. If anything went wrong, Joy would be left alone, and that was something he had sworn he would never let happen. They rode out, and it took them a couple of hours to reach the spot. His archers would line the route to bleed the mountain and his men, while the rest would be up to the prince. "I wish you good fortune, Prince Oberyn," he said as he prepared to ride back. "I thank you." "It's a good spot," Oberyn replied, surveying the valley. "My men will follow your orders. Adam and the others will chase them down, and will bleed them so you'll have less to face. My girls and I will deal with any who make it." "Are you sure you want them here for this?" Geryon asked. Elia was their aunt, Aegon their cousin. "I could no more stop them from being here than myself," Oberyn said. "I hope you get the justice you seek." "It's not justice I seek, it's blood. The debt he owes my family can only be paid by blood," Oberyn replied, and Geryon nodded. Patience was never Oberyn's greatest strength, and he had been feeling more and more impatient as the days went on, riding to Castamere, staying in the castle, and now being here in this field. It was testing him, but the goal he sought, the prize that had brought him here, made it all worthwhile. Seeing her, hearing her voice, he closed his eyes and smiled, grateful for the chance to experience that once again. He glanced at the white wolf, who crouched silently, more still than he or his daughters could ever manage. He smiled. He wasn't the only one seeking vengeance for someone he loved. "Are you in there, nephew?" he whispered. The wolf looked back at him, and he believed he saw a flicker of recognition. Having the wolf with him felt right, somehow. It was as if he had told Geryon that he wouldn't stop his daughters from being here, nor would he prevent the boy she considered her son, the boy who had avenged her daughter. He wondered how he would have reacted to the boy if he hadn't shown him what he did, if he hadn't proved who he was, who she was, or if he hadn't read his sister's wishes written in her own hand. Would he have blamed the boy? Blamed a child for the sins of their father? Would he have welcomed and accepted him? Honestly, he couldn't tell, but he was relieved he didn't have to make those choices. He had pledged his spear to the boy, and he was sure Dorne would do the same. Dorne would see her son on the throne, and he would be there to make it happen. He owed that to her as much as he owed her vengeance and justice. Jaehaerys had proven he understood the importance of both. He was a true son of Dorne. How much longer? Oberyn asked impatiently. I don't know, sister. He'll be here when he's here, Nym replied. Is that demon? Tyene asked, and he watched as the horse raced toward them. Thankfully, the men saw the color he wore and held their fire. It is, Oberyn confirmed. Demon's horse sped past them, and he waited as his former squire hobbled it and rushed back. Out of breath and covered in dust, he gasped, the attack's begun. They've blocked off the route. As he lay on the grass, Oberyn asked, is he with them? He is my prince, came the response. For Elia and Aegon. His daughters and Demon echoed, Elia and Aegon. He glanced at the white wolf, which nodded before turning to watch the path ahead. The valley they had chosen was a killing field, one narrow way in, flanked by towering mountains on either side. Although there was plenty of grass, the land felt almost barren. At the far end, 50 men from Casterly Rock guarded the exit. Once they entered this place, it was fight or die, and Oberyn was more than ready for the challenge. It felt like an eternity before the sound of the horses reached them. He couldn't tell how many men had made it, but as he looked, a flicker of doubt crept in. The mountain charged in with more than 10 men at his back, and then the arrows flew. The sky seemed to fill with them, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. Men and horses fell, and finally, the mountain himself was toppled. Seeing this, Oberyn rose to his feet and advanced toward him. The enormity that rides is mine, do with the others what you wish, he shouted as his daughters, Demon, and Ghost lunged at the men around them. He scanned the battlefield and saw the mountain rising to his feet, his great sword drawn. To Oberyn's left, Oberyn and Tyene were engaged with 3 men, while Demon and Nym battled 2 on his right. 4 other men were struggling to regain their footing, but none would manage to help their friends. Oberyn watched the white wolf unleash its deadly work, the screams echoing throughout the field. The Lannister men emerged from their hiding places, forming a line in case the mountain decided to flee. But Oberyn could see that the monster had no intention of retreating. Elia Martell, you raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son, he declared, raising his spear. He stepped closer to the mountain, whose great sword was larger than Oberyn himself. There the monster stood, like the Braavosi Titan, legs apart, heavy plate armor dark in gray, the massive sword held in front of him as he stared back at Oberyn. The carnage surrounded him. Elia Martell. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son, he shouted, his voice thick with anger. With a swift spin, he held his spear before him and dragged it down the front of the mountain's plate mail. The mountain raised his sword in defense. Elia Martell. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. He charged from the side, moving quickly, nearly knocking the helm from the monster's head. Elia Martell. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. Now fueled by fury, he dodged the great sword swinging overhead and struck the mountain across the chest, then the side, and finally on the back, his spear becoming an extension of his will. He struck the helm again, knocking it off, and then landed a slash across the mountain's face, drawing blood and a bellow of pain from the giant. Elia Martell. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. He glanced around to see his children had finished their fight, the men lay dead, and Ghost was in pursuit of one who tried to flee, the white wolf's bloodlust mirroring his own. He leaped into the air, bringing the edge of his spear down on the mountain's arm. The blow didn't penetrate the heavy armor, but he felt the bone break beneath the impact. Yet it hardly mattered, as the mountain wielded his great sword with a single hand, defying the limitations of ordinary men. Oberyn jumped back and then to the side, his attacks provoking an angry response. He felt the wind of the blade as it narrowly missed his face when he ducked. Spinning to the left, he feigned to the right, and when the mountain shifted in that direction, he was upon him once more. Oberyn Martell. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. His slash connected squarely with the mountain's face, the scream this time one of raw pain as he took an eye, blood spurting forth. But still, the mountain pressed forward. Oberyn was caught off guard by a brutal kick when he got too close, and it sent him staggering back. He was thrown almost 10 feet away, winded and struggling to catch his breath. Before he could fully react and get back on his feet, he had to dodge a stabbing blade. He kicked out his legs, catching the mountain's foot, which slowed him down, though he felt the sharp pain in his own leg. It bought him precious time to rise. As he regained his footing, he saw Oberyn and Nym moving forward, along with Daemon, while Tyene coated a spear with manticore venom. His own spear lay somewhere in the grass. He nodded to Tyene and motioned for the others to stay back. The mountain was his to face. He jumped 3 times, spinning with each leap, but felt the strain in his injured leg. Grabbing the spear, he pressed on, watching as his daughters moved aside to give him the space he needed. Oberyn Martell, he shouted, you raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. He advanced, favoring one leg, hearing the worried voices of his daughters behind him. He smiled to reassure them but focused on the mountain's left side, his blind spot. He moved in, launching quick thrusts that pushed the mountain back into the grass. His daughters watched intently as he caught the mountain under the armpit, thrusting the spear and feeling it pierce flesh as the manticore venom entered the giant's blood. Oberyn Martell, he repeated, you raped her, you murdered her, you killed her son. For all you've taken from me, for everything you made her suffer, for every day I've mourned her, I damn you. With that, he moved in for the kill. His slashes were crisp and precise. He spun the spear as he had trained, as he had practiced every day since he first picked one up. He pressed forward, catching the mountain's sword and forcing it down. Then, with a swift motion, he aimed for the monster's neck. But as he moved, he felt the stone give way beneath his foot, losing his balance. In horror, he watched as the mountain snapped his spear shaft in half. Father. He heard the agonized screams of his daughters. My prince. Daemon shouted. As he fell to the ground, he looked up to see the shadow looming over him. He watched as the sword rose, and he braced himself. Ayaha! Get away from me, the mountain shouted. Die, you demon birds, die. The man's voice echoed as the great sword slashed wildly around him, targeting some invisible enemy. Get out of my head. The mountain's panic was palpable as the sword slipped from his grip. He screamed loudly and fell to his knees. In a surge of determination, he jumped up, grabbed the sword, and swung it with all his might. The blade connected, catching the mountain squarely across the jaw. The aim was true, and he watched in horror and awe as the top half of the man's head flew off. Blood poured from the wound, and the thud of the mountain's body hitting the ground was deafening. As he looked down at the lifeless corpse, a wave of relief and peace washed over him. He had done it, he had avenged her. Turning, he saw his daughters running toward him. Father. Father, are you well? Tyene called as she reached him. I am. You, Oberyn, Nym, are you unhurt? He asked, scanning the faces of his daughters as the other 2 girls joined them. We are well, father, Tyene reassured him. And Daemon? I am unharmed, my prince. Then he noticed the white wolf approaching, its gaze fixed on the mountain's corpse. With a nonchalant gesture, the wolf cocked its leg and began to relieve itself.